just cooperate with me so much. I don't know why you don't.
Praise Jesus!
God is coming.
Sean! He's 53. Yeah. Osby, take the comment out. David.
There you go. Now you know why I say I maybe do some things differently, right? Not your typical Christian style there for sure. Your thoughts? I mean, I know the one gentleman getting arrested there, I think he's a former drug dealer, right?
Yes.
But now a believer. But again, you can see he was resisting the arrest. I mean, in one sense, so I can understand why police would be upset about that. You went cooperatively. You didn't fight back. Had your camera in the hand there the whole time. And the cameras have saved you a lot, haven't they? Recording everything for sure. But I think part of the argument would be, well, why didn't you move the road? You know, why don't you just move off the road? I mean, they're asking you to get off the road. It is technically illegal. Just obey, right? So your background, your side of the story there.
Well, and I would 100% agree. You know, it would be a lot easier if we would, but knowing the circumstances and the history of the ministry, we have been in different parks. All of our locations have been fenced by the city of Calgary. We went in one park, they fenced it. We went into another park.
So they put fences around you when you meet.
That's right.
Okay.
So when we were congregating, they said, no, we don't want you here. They couldn't get rid of us, so they fenced the entire parks. 3 locations, they did that to us. So finally, we went in the middle of drug trafficking business. The video you just saw, it was in the middle of drug dealers and hundreds of homeless congregating. 4 big buses are coming over there, parking in exactly
So
area.
city buses park there?
City buses park over there, picking up the homeless to satellite shelters, no problems. We were there for 8 months, no problems. Suddenly some...
So you parked your vehicle there for 8 months without a problem?
No problems.
So police knew about it?
That's right.
So you're saying this is specifically targeted at you to get you away from there?
What happened is that the mayor wanted to clean downtown. There is more police force being added, and suddenly he says, okay, let's start targeting not only the drug dealers, but let's deal with this street preaching stuff as well at the same time. So the 7 police vehicles came, they blocked the entire street, they asked us to remove the car. We said, fine, but we will finish what we came here to do.
So this very thing we saw here, you're saying you agreed to move the car, but said, can we just finish preaching first?
Yeah, we wanted to finish the preaching. We were in the middle of the preaching, and we believed that by them coming in such a force in the middle of our preaching is unconstitutional. Let us finish what we came to do. Give me a ticket if you want, tow my car, but there is no need for arrest. What for? They are drug dealers next to us, gangsters congregating over there. We have been under the bridge. They fenced that as well. So we decided to fight for our rights. We have to stand up for something because they keep pushing the boundary more and more and more. Where is enough?
All right, I'll throw that out to our viewers. Now you hear both sides of it. Now, when you hear Art's side of the story, it does put a little bit of a different spin on it, doesn't it, than what you just saw there. So is he justified in doing that, yes or no? Okay, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Any brief thoughts there, Jim?
You know, I just also wanted to comment that it is actually illegal. There's a law on the books that police officers are not allowed to interrupt the preaching of the gospel. They're not allowed to interrupt a sermon.
A religious...
it's actually illegal
so a religious
to do what
meeting,
they did.
You're saying, cannot actually be interrupted.
They cannot interrupt a sermon. They can't interrupt a preaching.
So in other words, the police
actually broke the law to do what they did.
Okay, man, this puts it into a whole different category. I mean, this is interesting. Okay, and so this is going to be brought up at the trial, I'm assuming, or already has been.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. Let's take a look at the curve view, and then we'll get to your phone calls. All right. We asked people in the street, too, for some opinions on the right to public preaching.
Should religious groups have the right to preach their beliefs in a public park or on a street corner?
I would say yes, so long as it's not impeaching on other people's rights.
If you're walking down a street, it wouldn't be, not everyone wants to be preached at, but I don't know for certain if it should be disallowed.
It depends the way they do it. Like, I think it's okay if they're not hurting anyone or if they're not trying to like recruit you to their religion, but if they're just peacefully doing it on a street corner, it should be okay.
They should have the right to advertise their beliefs, but I'm not sure about should they preach or not, because it's kind of, I guess, forced advertisement.
In a public park setting, what would be an acceptable noise level for preaching?
I guess whatever is acceptable for, people who are out enjoying the park generally, right? I mean, as long as what you're doing isn't disturbing people 3 blocks away, I guess it's okay.
Like in a park, like they have like little concerts. I think it shouldn't be any less than that.
not loud enough that, like, if there's houses nearby that you can hear in the house, because that would be a little distracting.
It would be so I could still have a conversation with someone and not continually having to repeat the question or being like, what?
There you go, and that's part of this issue is, what are the noise level bylaws in Calgary, and were they in fact broken? I mean, you go downtown Calgary anytime during the summer, you'll hear all kinds of concerts that are way above any kind of noise levels that they have there, and they're allowed to go forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, obviously, preaching the gospel isn't nearly as cool as, today's rock and roll, right? So, is it simply a matter of, is it a form of discrimination? Yes or no? Okay, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. All right, if you're just joining us again, our guests, Pastor Art Pawlowski, streetchurch.ca is their website. And they also have a show here on the Miracle Channel. It runs at noon on Saturdays. And Jim Blake, the chairman of Concerned Christians Canada, their website, concernedchristians.ca. All right, let's take some phone calls here. Dallas from Ontario, you've waited the longest. Go ahead. Phyllis.
Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. We had you down as Dallas. This must be Phyllis.
Yeah,
all right.
hi.
Let's get the right gender here. Go ahead, Phyllis.
Look, I was watching your program today, and I just really felt my spirit that I wanted to call in and just thank you guys for putting this out there, and that I support street ministry. And I just think it's great. I mean, you're out there in battle, and I don't think that everybody really knows how much Christianity is persecuted. And there's a time that we do have to fight, not physically, but in the spirit, in the battle. And I think you guys are awesome, and I will be praying for you.
So you would put your vote then that the city has crossed a line rather than street church?
Absolutely. I mean, if a street church has broken laws, like real laws, not these bogus little, what was it, stunting?
Stunting, yeah, that one's obviously rather far-fetched.
I mean, I don't condone the church breaking laws, but it really feels in the spirit that they're reaching for something to use against these guys.
That's right.
And they're doing what Jesus said to do: go out and spread the word.
Yeah,
So,
and I think I guess that's where the battle or the argument comes down to. Is, I mean, in one sense, they're not breaking any, what we would maybe call real laws.
That's right.
Yet, I mean, parking. I mean, it is a law that we need to park where it's legal to park and not where it's illegal to park. But again, behind the scenes, you can see there's a whole, this is targeted to get you off out of the way.
Circumstances, right?
Yeah.
The same with the parks. I agree with some of the comments that people made. In a park that there are residential areas, yes, keep your tone down because there are people there. We're talking about the crack cul-de-sac.
You're not talking about across the road there's a residential area.
Yeah.
How far would the nearest
2 blocks
houses
away.
be? 2 blocks
and
away.
And again, I got the documents that I showed you, and I have them with me. That officers said we never crossed the line. We never were above the acceptable legal level.
All right.
So that's the point.
All right, Phyllis, appreciate the input there.
Thank you.
Email from Mark from Alberta. He says, if Art and his team are already breaking the law in regard to parking, aren't the officers able to then stop them preaching the gospel as they're breaking the law in more than one way? Well, I guess so. I mean, in the sense that they're using that, they're saying, well, I don't know. I mean, if you break the parking law, I mean, you can get a ticket for it, but it's not something you go to jail for. So they can't stop you from preaching. No, actually, they can't, can they?
I think there's a matter that really is important in this case and in a lot of what's been happening with Street Church. Every officer, whether they be a bylaw officer or a police officer, has been given discretion under the law. Okay, so that means that if they see, for example, 2 scenarios going on, let's say somebody parking illegally and right beside them somebody dealing drugs. As an officer of the law, you have discretion.
That's a good point.
You have discretion, and at that point you need to use that discretion to exercise what is best, right, in that situation. The other thing, too, is they have a mandate to serve and protect, and they have to have this balance between serving the needs of people and protecting people from danger, right?
Yes.
So in looking at a situation, for example, you weigh the issue of they're helping thousands of people literally every month with basic needs, essential needs that are guaranteed to them by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And the balancing factor of them parking in a place that maybe they would prefer they didn't park, you look at this and you say, okay, what is the greater issue here? Is there a greater, especially when there are city buses that are not in bus zones that are parked in the same area every day? and the city. And for example, for 8 months, this is a crucial point. For 8 months, they were allowed to do this with no problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
The police didn't have
and
an
suddenly
issue.
it's an issue. I hear you. And the other thing that I have to kind of chuckle about, the food issue, I understand, again, in one sense you were breaking the law because I think at that point you didn't have the permit. Although, obviously you felt it's more important to feed the poor than to break a bylaw. So, but I think the charge was that you were endangering people because of where you were placed, feeding the poor, putting pedestrians